This is not a yes, I'm going to take the vaccine or no, I'm not going to take the vaccine. Okay, it's a yes, no, or maybe. And, why don't you ask me in about a month? Okay, that sort of thing. Okay, keep an open mind on this. If you're on the fence, I understand. Okay, and, keep reading. Okay, keep looking at things. And, if there's something that you're not sure whether it's, true or not or anything, don't be afraid to ask. Even to get to the panel for emergency use, okay, they had to go through the rigors of what's called a data and safety monitoring board, which quarterly, okay, and the people who are in the clinical trial, if there was any adverse effects or any problems with the trial, okay, boom, they immediately stopped it right then until the data and safety monitoring board could look at it very carefully and see exactly what's going on. In these times with the COVID pandemic and everything, did they take shortcuts? Not really. Okay, they had to take into the account the severity of the illness and how many people were dying, and what the vaccine's potential was in limited trials of saving lives was, and then make an educated decision. Okay, but continue to follow it very closely. So it's required to get feedback to the FDA on patients who get the vaccine. So we know what that perfect example would be, the so-called vSafe app, okay? And that's from the CDC. So that, and many are probably familiar with that once you get your vaccine, you were supposed to sign up for this vSafe thing, and this thing would text you like the first 3 weeks after you had your vaccine. How are you feeling? Did you have any side effects? This, that, and everything. And this went into this humongous CDC database. It's called the vSafe database. So we now have much more information about how good we're doing with the vaccines and what the side effects are and that sort of thing with the Moderna and the Pfizer vaccines in particular. Okay, I mean, we're talking millions of patients that have in this vSafe database that has come out. So it's very important that you have that follow-up and you continue on that. Kind of like what happened with the AstraZeneca vaccine over in Europe when they were talking about the blood clots, which is exactly what's happening now with the J&J, because they've seen some case reports of that. Okay, so is this a random thing that would have occurred whether they'd had the vaccine or not, or is it likely a side effect or an untoward effect of the vaccine? Those we had to always report those to the FDA. So the FDA has just halted the J&J vaccine for now. It's probably, I'm guessing it's going to be a week or two. And
so do they have to start over?
Yeah, no, they have to look at each one of those individual cases and make the decision is, okay, is the likelihood that the vaccine caused the clots to form highly likely, improbable, or kind of in between? They're not really sure. Okay, and they have to look at each one of those cases before they then recommend, okay, no, we're convinced this didn't have anything to do with it, or we better not, so we better hold tight here for a little longer and see, on the other people that have had the J&J vaccine. I mean, that's the way it goes. The FDA is there for your safety and how this can affect fertility. I'm not an obstetrician or gynecologist. I'm a cardiologist, but I can tell you this, that the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology have recommended the vaccine for women, that they should take this vaccine. Based on the data that we have at this point in time, they feel that the benefits, as in everything, benefits are outweighing the risks of that and taking it. There really is no, to my knowledge, and obviously if the American Board of Obstetrics and Gynecology have recommended it, there is no solid evidence that it affects fertility in any way. And being a scientist, I don't see how exactly it could affect fertility with the way the messenger RNA vaccine works and that sort of thing. But I do understand for a layperson that anytime you use the initials RNA or DNA, it's kind of a frightening sort of a thing that, okay, RNA and DNA, okay, are you messing with my, genetics and my genes and all that sort of thing? That's really not how the messenger RNA vaccine works. The messenger RNA vaccine is just like a particular specific recipe that the vaccine gives to your body and says, okay, this is how you make an antibody against the COVID virus. And it's just going to work against the COVID virus. But it's got to be this specific recipe. That's what the messenger RNA vaccine does. It goes into the cell with a recipe and says, okay, here's how you're going to make the antibodies. So that's all you got to do is just make these antibodies. Just use this recipe. Now, don't deviate from the recipe. Okay, just do it the way I tell you to do it. So I would say that if you still have concerns about the fertility and that sort of thing, the American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology says they do recommend it, that the benefits outweigh the risks. But talk to your obstetrician, talk to your gynecologist if you still have reservations or concerns, and get their humble opinion about it. And because like I said, we're all flying by the seat of our pants on this thing because it's such a novel virus and new vaccines and new technology and that sort of thing. But I have a good feeling about it. Okay, say you've taken the vaccine and you're one of the two-shot deal people with the Moderna or the Pfizer vaccine. And so in about 2 weeks after you take your second vaccine, okay, you are 95% protected. 95, not 100. You're 95% protected against catching the COVID virus. Now, that is different than the J&J, although the J&J virus, as some of you may know, it was just put on hold because of this clot thing that they're investigating. But I've been asked by a lot of people and everything, well, the J&J doesn't look as good, but you only got to take one shot and that sort of thing. Okay, in statistical and medical research, we call them endpoints. Okay, so the endpoint in the trials that were done with the Pfizer vaccine and with the Moderna vaccine was how good is it at keeping you from getting the infection? That was their endpoint. Okay, and that's where you hear this 93 to the 95% stuff. Whereas the J&J vaccine was 70%. Okay, it keeps you from getting it. Okay, but what they don't mention a lot in our news media, sometimes our irresponsible news media, is, but it guaranteed it was 100% effective in keeping you from dying from the COVID virus and keeping you out of the hospital. Okay, well, let's face it. Okay, that was kind of the key things. Okay, keep you out of the hospital and keep you from dying. So, and it was more about they riveted in on that 70%. It keeps you from getting the virus. So, the key was that with the J&J vaccine, if you get the virus, okay, it's pretty much 100% effective at keeping you from going into the hospital because you're really sick, and keeps you from dying. So, and some people don't understand that, but those are because the trials were conducted with different endpoints. And that's not made clear to a lot of people. So the moral of the story is when patients ask me, they say, well, which vaccine should I get, doctor? And I say, whichever one you can, is the bottom line. Okay, they're all really good. They're all effective. And whichever one you can, get first, do it. Okay. Another issue that has come up that was a very good question is, how long is this vaccine going to last? Is it going to be like a flu shot, or you got to get one every 6 months, or exactly what are we dealing with here? Well, first thing I can tell you is we don't know. Okay, the virus has only been around for a little over a year, at least that we know of for sure in the United States, because it was first described, in February of 2020. In all honesty, it was probably around a little earlier than that. But the longest it's been is probably a year and a half max that it's been around. So, and we started giving the vaccines in December. So here we are, and it's March, April, I guess now, April. And so we don't know, okay? What some bench testing, which means, and what the trials are saying is, we're pretty sure it's good for 6 months, okay? And we're kind of thinking it's going to be good for at least a year. There are some people saying it may be good for 2 years. So, I don't know. And the other thing too is it's, some like a tetanus shot, okay, that sort of thing, okay? They say you got to get one every 10 years and everything. That's a possibility too. It may go that long. The best I can tell you is time will tell. It looks like it's probably going to be good for at least 6 months. Good chance it's going to be good for a year, and it may be longer, but we just don't know. Time will tell. Well, I think it's because the messenger RNA in the vaccine, there's only one. It is the messenger RNA is covered by what's called a lipophilic coating. Okay, kind of a fatty coating. Okay, that is the only potential allergen of the vaccine. Is that coating? Okay. Now, could it be the coating that's doing it? Yeah, could be. Okay, that's causing that to happen. Not unlike the egg protein in the influenza virus can cause side effects and that sort of thing. Or I think it was about 3 years ago, and I took my flu vaccine, which I do every year, diligently and everything, and I had without any problems, and I had a hellacious reaction to it, and felt like I had the flu. And I found out that it was because a different type of protein had been used in that. Okay, but that's a traditional type vaccine. It's not the messenger RNA vaccine. Why people get that, nobody knows for sure. Okay, like the fever, the chills, and that sort of thing. I can speak personally that with my first vaccine, it was nothing. Okay, I just felt like somebody maybe just punched me in the arm maybe for about 12, 24 hours or something like that, and no big deal. When I got my second one, and I was prepared that potentially I would get side effects, and now we know that with the Moderna vaccine, it's as many as 40% will have some sort of side effects with the second, and that's through this V-safe follow-up and that sort of thing. And it's a little bit more than the Pfizer vaccine. A little bit more, statistically significantly more. So that's kind of interesting. But what does that mean necessarily? Okay, does that mean that you got more antibodies with the Moderna vaccine than you did with the Pfizer? Nobody knows. Nobody knows for sure. And nobody knows for sure when you get these side effects and why you get it on the second one and you didn't get it on the first one. But people who had COVID and then get their vaccine, they're more prone to get it on the first one than on the second one. Nobody really understands that for sure. Everybody can talk about it and make stuff up, but I'm not sure, to my knowledge, that anybody really knows for sure why that is. The evidence to date, I think it's called the B117, which is the UK variant. It looks like all the present vaccines that are being administered, it is effective against those variants. The interesting thing about the UK variant is it's about twice as contagious as is the kind of the prototypical COVID virus. The South African variant, they think that it also, you get immunity against it as well, but there's some data that I've read that says, well, maybe it's not. So I don't know. Time will tell. Well, if I had COVID, I don't need to get the vaccine. That is probably flat out wrong. And what we've learned is that the immunity that you develop, particularly against this so-called spike protein on the COVID virus, it only lasts for about 3 months, 6 months max, but they say kind of the average is 3 months. So that's why you've seen more than just case reports of people catching the COVID virus, getting over it, and then 6-9 months later get it again, okay, because they lost their immunity to it. So yes, if you have had a COVID infection, okay, the CDC recommends 60 to 90 days. Personally, I tell my patients, if you had the COVID virus and you're over it and you're feeling better and everything, then at 2 months, get your vaccine, okay, or get your first vaccine. You don't want to fall into that gap, okay, and we want to get your immunity up as quick as we can. And there's really no downside to doing it sooner than later, really.